I'm bringing you an evening report, a story about thousands of federal law enforcement officers, their promises, and their broken dreams. These are the people who raised their hands to serve their country. But what they received was something they never expected. What I'm about to tell you today is not just a political drama. It's about the lives of people who trusted and moved forward and then became victims of deception. This story could have a serious impact on United States immigration enforcement operations, and it's essential that you hear this completely. So let's start from the beginning. The deal of dreams, $50,000 bonuses, and shining promises. Last year, the Trump administration launched a massive hiring campaign, the most aggressive federal recruitment drive in recent history. Their target was ambitious: hire 10,000 new immigration and customs enforcement agents to implement the administration's immigration enforcement agenda. The incentives were quite impressive. According to reporting by CNN.com and multiple news organizations, what were potential recruits offered? Listen to this: AOC signing bonuses up to $50,000, AOC student loan forgiveness, AOC better retirement benefits, AOC competitive salaries. For many Americans, especially those with military or law enforcement backgrounds, this seemed like a life-changing opportunity, a chance that could change their lives and their families' lives. The response? Overwhelming. The administration received over 220,000 applications, and according to Department of Homeland Security official figures published in early January, over 12,000 new agents were hired. But what's now emerging from reporting by multiple credible sources is heartbreaking. These new agents are speaking out, and what they're saying is disturbing. Screams on social media, agents' desperate appeals. International Business Times reviewed posts on social media platforms. Unofficial forms for deportation officers. The picture that emerged was one of confusion, frustration, and broken promises. One post that journalists reviewed stated, "It's been 2 months here, still waiting for health insurance. Is anyone else having this problem?" Another agent wrote, "Dude, it'll be 4 weeks on Monday since I started. Still haven't received payment." But the most disturbing post, an agent wrote, "They told me they don't know when health insurance will activate. My daughter is sick and she has no insurance." Just imagine, a father signs up to serve his country, government promises benefits, support, security, and now he's watching his sick daughter without insurance. This isn't just a statistic, this is someone's real life. CNN investigation, it's a show. Insider's shocking statement. CNN.com published an in-depth investigation on the ICE hiring surge. What did they discover? The agency's entire infrastructure was overwhelmed. The rush to onboard thousands of agents in months left the department ill-prepared. Multiple sources told CNN that the Department of Homeland Security cut corners. Background checks were only provisional, promising fuller vetting later. And the interview process, what was previously standard, eliminated. An administration official spoke to CNN on condition of anonymity. Their statement, blunt and brutal. This is a show, just a show. The consequences of this rushed process are serious. CNN reported that in some cases, individuals against whom criminal charges were pending showed up at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia. When their issues came to light, they were sent home. Another case, a Drug Enforcement Administration informant was conditionally offered a job with ICE. Things only stopped when the DEA caught the error and contacted ICE officials. Imagine, a DEA informant was getting a federal law enforcement job. This isn't oversight, this is disaster. Human resources departments, according to sources, they were giving unclear or contradictory instructions to new recruits. Where to report, when to come, how much payment they'd get, nothing was clear. The Federal Emergency Management Agency had to assign its staff to assist ICE's overwhelmed HR operations. The training spectacle, 47 days and 200 plus failures. Training was shortened, just 47 days, much less than previous standards. And the most troubling thing for operational readiness, over 200 recruits were terminated from the training academy. They couldn't meet physical or academic standards. These individuals were sent back to field offices where they could be assigned administrative work, meaning they're still receiving federal pay, despite not being qualified for enforcement duties. Taxpayers' money is going to people who can't even do their actual work. According to CNN.com's investigation, this chaotic hiring process became a source of tension in a multi-agency meeting earlier this year. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who is the driving force behind the administration's deportation agenda, was reportedly frustrated with senior ICE officials. The reason for his frustration? New recruits were moving at such a slow pace to make arrests on the streets. This isn't politics. This is accountability. Now let me make one thing clear. This isn't about politics. This isn't about whether you support or oppose stricter immigration enforcement. This is about basic accountability. When the federal government makes promises to recruit its citizens of compensation, benefits, support, those promises must be kept. These are people who left other careers, relocated their families, trusted their government. Many are veterans. Many have law enforcement experience. They signed up to serve. Reporting by rawstory.com, which reviewed additional social media posts from apparent ICE agents, noted that some recruits claim their five-figure signing bonuses haven't materialized. When you're talking about bonuses up to $50,000, and when you're talking about people who made significant life decisions based on those promised payments, failing to deliver isn't just an administrative hiccup, it's a breach of trust. Quality concerns, idiots, and sketchy recruits. There's another dimension to this story that deserves attention. According to independent journalist Ken Klippenstein, who is tracking ICE expansion, the quality of some recruits has raised eyebrows even within the agency. A senior ICE agent described many of the new hires as idiots. A recent ICE recruit told Klippenstein on condition of anonymity. A lot of guys are honestly pretty sketchy. I thought federal agents should be clean-cut, but some people pass around a flask when we're watching a suspect. If these accounts are accurate, and I emphasize that these are secondhand reports that we're treating with appropriate caution, then the implications go beyond payment delays. They suggest that in the rush to meet hiring targets and fulfill campaign promises, the administration compromised the standards that ensure law enforcement officers are qualified, professional, and trustworthy. The grocery price reality check, obviously not correct. Let's connect this to something that hits every American household: food prices. While the administration has been claiming economic victories, including lower grocery prices, the data tells a different story. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the federal agency responsible for tracking consumer prices, released its latest Consumer Price Index data. The numbers? Food prices rose 2.5% over the past 12 months. That's higher than overall inflation. Professor Ricky Volpe, who teaches in Cal Poly's agribusiness department and previously worked at the Department of Agriculture, told the New York Times, "This hammers home the point that when the current administration claims grocery prices are down, it's obviously not correct. Specific items have seen dramatic increases. AUC beef prices 16.4% up past year. AUC coffee prices 19.8% jump. AUC lettuce 7.3% up. AUC frozen fish 8.6% increase." To be fair, not all food prices are rising. Egg prices, which became a campaign issue, have dropped sharply over the past year. But overall, the data is clear. Grocery prices are not going down. For low-income families, this continued inflation in food costs is causing real hardship. Middle-class shoppers are also increasingly feeling the pinch. Why? The New York Times interviewed experts. There's no single reason. Weather patterns, supply chain issues, labor costs, fuel prices, and changes in consumer demand all play a role. But the administration's own policies are also contributing to higher costs rather than lower ones. Tariffs on imported goods, including food products and agricultural inputs, add costs that are often passed on to consumers. Immigration enforcement actions have created labor shortages in agriculture and food processing sectors that rely heavily on immigrant workers. So what now? Where is all this leading? So where does all this leave us? We have a federal agency that has hired over 12,000 new agents. Many are reporting that they haven't received promised bonuses, haven't received health insurance, or in some cases haven't even received pay for weeks. We have an administration that keeps claiming economic victories that the data doesn't support. And we have American families, including the families of these new federal agents, struggling with the reality of their daily expenses. The question that should be asked and answered is, what's the plan to fix these problems? The Department of Homeland Security dismissed concerns about the recruiting process in a statement to CNN.com. A DHS spokeswoman said the department is maintaining high fitness and training standards and characterized the news reports as cherry-picking individual cases. The statement noted that over 85% of new officers are experienced law enforcement officers who have already completed a law enforcement academy. But this response doesn't address the fundamental concerns. Even if 85% of recruits are experienced, what about the remaining 15%? If most agents are receiving their pay and benefits on time, what about those who aren't? When you're talking about thousands of federal employees, many of whom are armed and have significant law enforcement powers, most isn't good enough. Every single agent deserves timely pay, promised health insurance, and offered bonuses. There's a larger principle at stake here. Trust in government institutions is already at historic lows. When federal agencies make promises to recruit their citizens and then don't keep those promises, that trust erodes further. The agents themselves, not statistics, real people. And let's talk about the agents themselves. These aren't abstract statistics. These are real people who made life-changing decisions based on commitments from their government. Imagine the agent who wrote about his sick daughter who has no health insurance. Think about the stress, think about the fear, think about the anger. Imagine that you've been at a new federal job for 4 weeks and haven't received a single paycheck yet. How will you pay rent? How will you feed your family? These aren't trivial concerns. These are situations that can push people toward desperation. There's also a security dimension to consider. If reports about recruits' quality are accurate, if background checks were indeed rushed and corners were cut, then we have federal law enforcement officers on the streets who may not have been properly vetted. This isn't just an administrative problem. This is a public safety issue. This is also a national security issue, particularly given the history of infiltration attempts in federal law enforcement agencies. The dangers of shortcuts. The consequences of haste in government operations. I've been covering news for many years, and one thing I've learned is shortcuts in government operations almost always come back to haunt. You can't rush the careful, methodical processes that ensure quality and integrity in federal hiring. You certainly can't eliminate interviews, speed through background checks, and hope for the best. The consequences of those decisions are now becoming apparent. As we've approached the first anniversary of President Trump's second term, it's worth taking stock of the gap between promises and reality. RC promised 10,000 new ICE agents fully trained and ready. RC, reality, an overwhelmed system struggling to process recruits. RC promised lower grocery prices. RC, reality, prices continue to rise at rates that hurt families. ROCE promised job growth and economic prosperity. ROCE, reality, slowed job creation and rising unemployment. Final words, truth, accountability, and your role. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to think about these facts. I'm not here to advocate for a political position. My job, and the mission of this independent journalism, is to present you with verified information from credible sources and ask the questions that need to be asked. Your job as an informed citizen is to process that information and draw your own conclusions. But what I will say is this: Accountability matters. Truth matters. When government officials make claims that contradict official data from their own agencies, it needs to be pointed out. When federal employees who signed up to serve their country aren't receiving promised compensation and benefits, it needs to be investigated and corrected. When policies are implemented so hastily that quality and integrity are compromised, it needs to be acknowledged and addressed. The situation with ICE hiring is still developing. We don't yet know how widespread the payment and insurance problems are. We don't know if the administration will take steps to rectify the situation. We don't know what the long-term consequences will be for immigration enforcement operations or for ICE's morale and effectiveness. These are questions that deserve continued scrutiny from journalists, from Congress, and from the American people. What we do know is that thousands of new federal agents are expressing frustration and concern. We know that the hiring process was rushed and chaotic, according to accounts from multiple credible news organizations. We know that some recruits aren't getting what they were promised. And we know this is happening while the administration is making claims about economic improvement that aren't supported by the data. This is complex stuff, and it doesn't lend itself to simple narratives or partisan talking points. Truth is usually more complicated than we'd like it to be. But complicated truths are still truths, and they're worth understanding. That's our purpose. That's what we'll continue to do. Thank you for watching. Thank you for demanding better news sources. And thank you for being the kind of person who wants to understand what's actually happening in your country. I'll be back soon with reporting on stories that matter. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay engaged. Good night.